Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from a deleted user and says, Am I the arsehole for leaving my surprise wedding because I felt blindsided? Last week, I, 30 female, was invited to a supposedly fancy party by my longtime boyfriend, Mark, 32 male. We'd been dating for 5 years, and while we had discussed marriage before, there were no immediate plans for a wedding. Excited about the event, I dressed up in my best attire and arrived at the designated venue. As I entered the grand hall, I was completely taken aback to see all of our family, friends, and acquaintances gathered, eagerly waiting. It turns out Mark had orchestrated an elaborate surprise wedding for us without my knowledge. Everyone erupted into applause as I stood there shocked and overwhelmed. I just felt a mix of emotions. While I love Mark and had dreamed of our future together, the idea of getting married without any prior discussion or consent felt like a breach of trust. So I pulled Mark aside and tried to express my concerns and reservations about the surprise wedding. I explained that I wanted a say in the planning process, to be a part of the decision making, and to have the chance to prepare mentally and emotionally for such a significant milestone in our lives. However, Mark dismissed my concerns, saying that he thought it would be a romantic gesture and that I would be thrilled. In that moment, I faced a difficult choice: go along with a surprise wedding, putting on a smile despite feeling unsettled, or stand up for my autonomy and voice my true feelings. I ultimately made the decision not to process with a surprise wedding, much to the disappointment and confusion of our guests. Now I find myself at odds with Mark, our families, and even some of our friends who believe I overreacted and spoiled a beautiful moment. However, I firmly believe that a marriage should be a joint decision, with open communication and shared expectations. Everyone's excuse for this is I have always talked about marrying Mark, and again, the problem isn't marrying him. The problem is not having any say in my wedding. Mark thought I would appreciate it because I always spoke about how stressful planning a wedding must be. Yes, I think it's stressful. It is, but I'd still like planning one. After this whole ordeal, everyone asked if Mark and I were ending things, in which I replied no. I emphasized towards them and Mark I still wanted to marry him. I most feel like this is making me more of an arsehole since I just wasted a perfectly fine wedding. So, am I the arsehole for refusing to attend my own surprise wedding, even though it was intended as a romantic gesture? Edit. I previously omitted this from my post because of the subreddit's word count guidelines. I love surprises. It's a thing everyone has known me to love. Mark, knowing that, the fact I wanted to marry him and said wedding planning was stressful, thought a surprise wedding would be perfect. A surprise engagement is bland because it will always be a surprise but not a wedding, lol. He threw this wedding for the surprise, but explained how in a couple of days we could do a courthouse wedding to make it legal. This was his only way to surprise me. I love spontaneity, but legal marriage or not, I wanted a say in my wedding. To choose the perfect date, to choose my bridesmaids, to pick out my cake. Again, due to these thoughts, everyone thinks I'm the arsehole, because I could have went along with the party and do a redo legal wedding. But again, I felt blindsided and confused, so I left. Now, we cover a lot of stories where people turn up at the people's weddings and they do a surprise proposal to their fiancé during someone else's wedding without asking, baby showers where someone's announced their pregnancy during it, birthdays where they make it all about themselves. And in all of these situations, this one included, I think, what goes through your mind to think this is a good idea? Who have you spoken to in your family that's agreed with you that this is a good idea? Surely you just didn't come up with this on the top of your head all by yourself and went along with it without anyone's help. There must have been other people. Regardless if your partner or not, it loves surprises. That's just not a good idea. I've seen a couple of videos in the past where people make like these surprise engagements in front of huge groups of people, like at Disney or, in the middle of a shopping mall, whatever it may be. I think this one was literally in the middle of a shopping mall for some reason. And they got down on one knee in front of this huge crowd and asked the person to marry them. And you could see that their partner was like extremely upset about it. I'm not sure if this feels fair to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, because to me, it feels like it's a manipulative thing to do. It puts them on the spot to almost say yes. I know a lot of people will say, I'll just tell him no, absolutely not. But for other people, it can be extremely difficult. But Alien Overlord says, not the arsehole. I admire you, OP, for saying no and not just going along with it. You did the right thing. Putting someone in a position that makes them feel guilty or embarrassed to say no is not a romantic thing to do at all. It's emotionally manipulative. If he is apologetic and wants to plan a wedding together, then you have yourself a great guy. If he gets all weird and angry about it, you dodged a bullet. One way or the other, things will work out the way they are supposed to. Spy on Me replies to that and says, yeah, OP is so brave to walk away. A lot of people would have stuck it out despite being mega uncomfortable because of the social pressure. I actually know someone who threw a surprise wedding for his now wife, but they were at least engaged and he was confident she'd like it. I still think it's a bit of a mad thing to do and it wouldn't be for me at all, but at the very least, you need to be engaged and have a good idea they would respond well to it. What your partner did just seems insane to me. Not the arsehole, and I really think you need to work this through properly with him and make sure he understands your point of view if you want to stay in the relationship. He made a big error of judgment here and I'd question how well he knows and understands you. So there's another surprise wedding someone's seen. I mean, how many of these, I wonder, goes on during each year? I kind of think, if maybe you've discussed it like a couple of years prior, would you be okay or would you want a surprise wedding? Would that be something that interests you? Which I guess takes away some of the surprise because, one day it might come down, it might happen in the future. But still, to just do it out of nowhere just seems fucking insane to me. A surprise wedding in any shape or form, even if you mentioned to it a couple of years beforehand, is still something that I just wouldn't be able to do. Mig says Mark is an arsehole. This is an absurd, foul thing to do. If Mark thinks this is a romantic gesture, then he has very serious problems with understanding consent. Not the arsehole. See You Space Cowboy replies to that and says, I thought public proposals were the worst it could get. Surprise wedding manipulating you to get married on the spur of the moment in front of your whole family? What is this guy on? And her family are playing into the manipulation by piling on after all keeping the secret. I'll be moving country, possibly moving planet. How did he even get a marriage license without her consent? Dude's crazy. I can't believe this is real. Cosmic says, I gotta say no one's an arsehole here. Mark was stupid but not an arsehole. Based on what you say and have added, but everyone knowing you like surprises and haven't expressed the idea of wedding planning being stressful, I honestly believe Mark was just trying to kill two birds with one stone. I suppose he's encroaching on arsehole territory in trying to get you to go along with it after pulling him aside, but I can feel his internal panic clouding his judgment and reacting. I think he was so sure that you'd like this, and it would have taken so much effort to organize everything, especially all the guests including your family, who's seemingly also supporting his idea. You not liking it caught him off guard and I'm guessing he became defensive, which I believe is an understandable reaction. I'd only say it's a cause for concern if he doesn't end up coming around to your perspective in time. So OP does come back in to update the post and they say, I want to start off by thanking everyone for the responses I got and the advice. However, I would like to reiterate that Mark is a great person who did a stupid thing. If you knew me though, a surprise wedding seems like something I would love. Unfortunately, I didn't. After talking to Mark, we both got to the conclusion that we didn't do anything wrong. Both of us are valid in our opinions and the situation was an odd one. Unfortunately, Mark spent a lot of money on planning this wedding, as well as family members. He doesn't think that we have the funds to plan another wedding until a couple of years. I will be honest, that choice is really messing with me. I'd like to be married sometime soon and start out life as a family. I know weddings don't have to be extravagant. We could always throw a small party and once we have enough money do a second one. But I don't know if that's what I want. I honestly feel selfish and regret not using the surprise wedding. I feel like I wasted a bunch of money. I used to stand by my choice confidently, but now I'm not sure I made the right choice and all this stress is wearing me down. Anyway, I'm staying with Mark, probably will get married soon, and have my dream wedding in the near future hopefully. Again, thanks to all the responses and I hope people from Am I the Arsehole also see this post. And just one more, the top comment on that post was from Tail Over T, who says, personally the fact that he blew all the wedding money on a surprise without any consultation or care at all on what you actually wanted, then blew you off when you tried to express your very genuine concern is still raising red flags for me. I'm not going to say it has to be a deal breaker. I don't know him, but the lack of general concern or care towards your wants and needs and a willingness to spend large amounts of savings on something for you that you absolutely did not want at all and trying to pressure you into it because he backed you into a corner is to me still very much cause for concern. But I recognize I've only seen a tiny piece of this puzzle, and I wish you the best. And throughout the whole post, there was some very, very mixed comments on there. A lot of, absolutely not the arsehole for your choices. Some, no one's an arsehole here because they understand sort of Mark's feelings on the matter and how he might have felt in the time with her liking surprises, etc., etc. But how do you feel in the matter? How would you react if that was you? You walked into that room and saw all your family and friends there, and your partner was stood there like, surprise, it's your wedding kind of thing. How would you feel about that? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from a throwaway account. It says, am I the arsehole for leaving a family vacation early because my husband and I were expected to sleep in different beds? No, but let's read it anyway. For my father-in-law's 58 male birthday this year, my mother-in-law 57 female planned a week-long trip with their 4 children. Edit, my husband is the second oldest and their respective partners. They rented out a nice house near the beach, and the cost for the Airbnb was split equally between the attending couples. My husband, 31 male, and I, 29 male, drove down there this week, and when we arrived in our, edit, pre-assigned room, we were surprised to find 2 single beds. At first we shrugged it off and figured we could simply push them against each other, but we quickly found out that the headboards of the beds were drilled to the wall. Edit, the headboards were attached to both the wall and the bed frame. I assume it's to prevent renters from moving the beds and possibly damage the flooring, etc. I asked my mother-in-law why she had chosen a house that didn't have enough double beds to hold all the couples that were invited, and she told me to stop making a fuss because it wasn't that big of a deal. I then asked why she hadn't mentioned it beforehand, and she rolled her eyes at me, saying that I was overdramatic, a walking stereotype, and that me not clinging to her son for a little while might be for the best. Considering she has made some borderline homophobic comments in the past, she claims they are jokes, I was quite uncomfortable, and based on her remarks, I felt like she had given the room with the single beds to the only gay couple on purpose. I said that if it wasn't that big of a deal, surely she and her husband would be happy to switch rooms with us, but she once again told me that I should quit making a fuss and walked away from the conversation. Afterwards, my husband tried talking to his mother, but he wasn't any more successful than I had been at this point. I was reaching my breaking point, so I asked my husband if he'd like to spend our vacation at a hotel, as we'd both taken the week off work anyway. He agreed, and we booked us a room at a hotel a few towns away. My mother-in-law has accused us of ruining her husband's birthday and dividing the family, because 2 of my husband's siblings support our decision. My in-laws and the last sibling have been texting me, calling me an arsehole for turning my husband against his family and egoistically manipulating the vacation. And my thoughts as I was reading this is just like, go somewhere else. We covered a story recently where, not quite the same situation, but the OP was being basically used as a babysitter on a family vacation, and my thoughts were that, just go and do your own trip, go somewhere else. Why be with people who are treating you like shit? Go and enjoy your vacation somewhere else. And it's the same in this. And when it got to the point that you asked your husband if he'd like to spend the vacation at a hotel, I nearly cheered mid-story there. It doesn't happen often. Just keep turning it back on the rest of the family. They're calling you an arsehole for turning your husband against his family. They're the ones that ruined the vacation. They're the ones that supported the mother-in-law. You haven't divided the family, she has. But Redhead says, not the arsehole. Based on her behavior from what you said, it does sound like she intentionally gave the gay couple separate beds. You didn't ruin the vacation. The homophobia did. 7 Carat says, not the arsehole. She told me that not clinging to her son for a little while might be for the best, and then says this woman is hostile towards you and homophobic. A kind, sensitive person would make sure that they didn't give the gay couple a room with 2 single beds, precisely because they wouldn't want it to seem intentional. You felt disrespected because she disrespected you. You didn't have to confront her about it, but you are entirely right to move. Anyone claiming that you ruined the vacation is conflict averse and cowardly. She committed the offense. You established a boundary. Establishing a reasonable boundary is not being dramatic or manipulative, but people without the guts to stand up to abuse will always act as if the person who does it is the problem, not the abuser. To hell with that. OP adds their own comment and says, alright, I'm posting this so I won't have to reply to every person who brought up similar topics. It's not that I'm entirely against my husband and I sleeping in different beds for a week. We've done so before when traveling with friends without any complaint. What bugs me is the fact that upon arrival we found out that we had simply been assigned a room with single beds. It wasn't first come first serve, it wasn't a random pick, it was my mother-in-law's decision. If I were to rent an Airbnb, knowing that only couples were staying there, I'd give a heads up in case one couple would have to sleep in different beds and try to figure out the sleeping arrangements together. I wouldn't just decide who had to stay in that room, and I wouldn't make everyone pay equal parts of the rent if the accommodations weren't equal. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? How would you have dealt with it if it was you? Would you have dealt with it in a different way or the same as OP? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's have another story. And our next story comes from another throwaway account and says, am I the arsehole for calling my sister-in-law and brother whores after my sister-in-law insulted both me and my wife? My wife, 34 female, and I, 47 male, are staying with my parents, 72 female and 71 male, grandma, 90 female, older brother, 50 male, brother-in-law, 48 male, their kids, 10 female and 7 male, younger brother, 40 male, sister-in-law, 38 female, and their kids, 9, 7, and 4, at a beach house we rented for 2 weeks. If you remember all those, you're better than I am. I should preface this by saying that frankly, I do not get along with my younger brother Todd, and I do not like my sister-in-law Anne. That said, I'm civil with them, and while I don't see them often, I do love my niece and nephews. Yesterday, my wife Alice and I were babysitting all of our nieces and nephews while my grandma napped and everyone else went to see a movie. Now, once we got here, Alice and I had baked cookies for everyone to eat. We baked them later in the evening, and Anne, who works as a personal trainer, told her kids that they couldn't have any. The kids were upset, of course, especially since their cousins were allowed cookies, but Anne was insistent that they weren't allowed any at the time. She and Todd are generally quite strict with the kids' diets. None of them have any food allergies, and to my recollection they have only been allowed a popsicle once this past week. While everyone was out, one of the kids asked Alice if they could have cookies, and so we gave them all some cookies to enjoy. When everyone came home, Anne asked the kids what they did, and one of them mentioned that we gave them cookies. She then told them to play on the beach, where they were watched by my older brother and brother-in-law and were joined by their cousins. Anne then proceeded to get very mad. She started off just saying that we shouldn't have given them cookies because she hadn't said they could have them. Alice started to apologize and say we just wanted them to enjoy their vacation, but Anne interrupted her and told her that she didn't trust a fat ass with her kids' health. Now I was absolutely livid. I told her to shut the fuck up. The argument spiraled from there, and at one point Anne said she should never have trusted two psychos with her kids. Alice and I met in a therapy group 11 years ago after we were discharged from the hospital for mental health concerns. And though I like to emphasize we weren't there for anything that would ever even imply that would put anyone else in danger. I then told her that it was rich for two whores to think that they could ever raise morally healthy kids. Anne was originally Todd's best friend's wife, but the two had an affair, during which their oldest child was conceived. Then Anne and her husband had what sounds like a rather messy divorce. She then started crying and left, and our family is a bit divided over this. I realized I was very harsh, but so was she, and I don't think it was her place to dish out what she couldn't take. So, am I the arsehole? And we're going to start in the comments with Forearm Deep, who says, I guess I'm in the vast majority, but I would say not the arsehole. Anne went way too low over a couple of cookies. I get most people's point that a parent gets to decide what their children eat, but I've seen too many people who are health nuts force that lifestyle on their children to an abuse degree. And if the reaction to a few cookies is to call people fat asses, it sounds like the kids are probably getting that same reaction from her at home, if they indulge in the occasional sweet. Also, if you're going to throw stones from your glass house, be ready for the retaliation. If a couple of cookies on a vacation is wild and an awful violation of trust, then this lady needs to go to therapy. No dentist replies that and says, I fully agree with this, not the arsehole. Those children are going to have such a terrible relationship with food and likely develop eating disorders at an early age due to their parents' beliefs and rules. I'm not one for undermining the rules of parents either, but if a rule is setting a child up for harm or is actively causing harm, it should be broken in my opinion. I get what people are saying in principle, but people need to look at the context. Insulting and degrading people's characters over a goddamn cookie is batshit crazy response. OP has even clarified that. If she had approached them calmly and respectfully, things would not have escalated. Don't dish what you can't take. Big Cloud says everyone sucks here. You knew the kids couldn't have cookies, so you deliberately stepped all over their boundaries. and attacked you personally, which is out of bounds. You responded with your own immature insults. But let's face it, this started with you not respecting their boundaries as parents. Blood Red Moonlight says everyone sucks here. Obviously Anna for starting the insults. You and your wife more so for feeding her kids something you know she said not to. She was half right. You proved that she can't trust you with her kids. Yes, it was just a cookie this time, but now she knows that if you feel like it, you'll go against her rules for her kids. One more comment from Last Understanding who says everyone sucks here. It's a kind gesture for your wife to offer the kids cookies, but it does violate the ground rules those parents set. Ideally, she should have asked their parents, and if said no, take it at face value. The things they said about you and your wife, however, were 100% uncalled for. Absolute lows, however you stoop to their level. Frankly, I can understand why you get pissed off on your wife's behalf. I'll be extremely upset too. This is a kind of shitty situation all round. That's based off how far this escalated. Something else innocent could have set off the events as well. Going low contact might be for the best, at least for a while, once apologies are stated between all parties. And the comments on this one were pretty much everyone sucks here or not the arsehole. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What would you do in that situation? What do you think the verdict should be? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below as always. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.